We are going live now on YouTube. So I would request Jyoti Prakash to continue with the initial formalities of the session.
Thank you, Devasis. Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. This is Jyoti Prakash Datta, co-founder, Team Lex Cognoscenti. I welcome you all to the 32nd episode of Lex Cognoscenti's Rendezvous series. This series is an initiative to explore the lives, struggles, quantum leaps, legacies, and anecdotes of connoisseurs of legal fraternity. So we try to invite persons of stature, character, and integrity, and make an endeavor to create optimism and motivation in the field of law and litigation. So, adding a bit to this particular chain, we have today invited an eminent figure from the legal fraternity. He is none other than the Advocate General of the State of Sikkim, Mr. Vivek Kohli. Sir, I welcome you on board for this interview session.
Thank you so much, Jyoti and Debushi, for having me over. It should be an interesting afternoon with both of you.
Thank you, sir. It would definitely be. So before proceeding with the interview session, I would definitely give a brief introduction for the convenience of our audience. So Mr. Vivek Kohli has been in legal practice since 1991. He obtained his law degree from Delhi University. He also holds a BSc in mathematics from St. Stephen's College, Delhi. He co-founded ZEUS Law, in which he is a senior partner. He has experience in dealing with matters relating to constitutional law, general and civil law, laws relating to power, including the Electricity Act, arbitration, and alternate dispute resolution. And among other contributions, Mr. Kohli has assisted the Government of India in framing border protection measures under the TRIPS agreement and the rules of refund of anti-dumping duty. He is credited to have drafted the first ever distribution license issued by the Delhi Electricity Regulatory Commission under the Electricity Act of 2003 for New Delhi. So, Sir was appointed as the Advocate General for the State of Sikkim in the year 2019, and after that, in the year 2020, he has been designated as the Senior Advocate by the High Court of Sikkim. So, Sir, we are very pleased to have you for this interview session. We are delighted to go ahead with this particular interview session.
Thank you so much.
So, indeed, sir. So, sir, with your permission, may I start the first phase of this particular interview session?
Please.
Sure. Yes, sir. So, sir, this session will be divided into two parts. The first part will be taken by me, and Devasis will join in the second part, and he will ask some other questions. Sure, sir. So, sir, first of all, we want to know about your childhood days. First of all, tell us where did you take your birth, and what was your childhood like, and what was your family background?
So, I was born in 1968 in Delhi, and I was born to my parents. My father was a civil servant, and my mother was a housewife. Being the son of and I had two brothers, so I was a middle child. Three brothers we were, and we are actually. So the interesting bit about being born in a family of a government servant is that much like defense forces, the civil services also have that 3-year tenure where after every 3 years you have to shift place. So it was an interesting journey. I mean, it led to a gypsy education. So which was like you were born in Delhi, so I joined my kindergarten and in Delhi. But after that, my father got posted to Mauritius. So we were 3 years in Mauritius. Then after that, 3 years in Chandigarh. And then we came to Delhi in 1980. And I completed my 12th in Delhi only. And after that, college and then law. So the thing that I remember the most from, this kind of a gypsy education is that every 3 years when you change school, Jyoti, that led to a forcible, sort of process where you had to actually, make friends every 3 years, new friends, because your school changed, your locality changed, your city changed, everything changed, and you kind of had to go out and make friends in school, in your neighborhood. You had to find people you could play with in the evening. That adaptability which you will find in service background kids is something which I think their environment sort of very helps them a lot in achieving it at a very young age. So if you were to leave any one of us actually in a group of adults also now, it'll be very easy for us to, sort of reach out, talk to people, adapt, and, generally get a conversation going, because that's how we were brought up, and that was just part of growing up. So it was a very, very kind of gratifying, you could say, childhood. Yeah.
That's great to know, sir. Really, it is very difficult to adjust in a civil servant's family, and sometimes it becomes very much difficult to adjust to every changing circumstances that happens after every transfer. And sir,
Yeah.
after that, we want to know when did you made the mindset that you have to pursue law and you have to make a career in law?
Well, actually, I didn't make up my mindset. So when I was in college in Stephens, and everybody wanted to give the common admission test, which was the MBA exam, and so I was also part of the crowd that fine, we'll also give the exam. And as luck would have it, while I cleared most of the written exams, I flunked every single interview. I got rejected in every single interview, and at the end of 3 years, I was thinking of what to do. And law was actually a 3 year course. Masters was a 2 year course, which led nowhere. And law was a 3 year course, and a couple of my best friends were actually going to take that course, law. So I thought, chalo, we'll also join and we'll see where it takes us. So I mean, to be honest, till that stage, I had not made up my mind. In the 3 years in law, also, I had not made up my mind that I want to kind of practice law. But fortunately for me, the day I passed out of the 3 years, and just before that, in my second year, end of second year, and before the third year, I had done an internship with a very renowned lawyer, and I had the opportunity to go to court, and as later I would learn, what it is called is the law in action. And that kind of left a little bit of an impression on me, because I just like the setting of if you think about it, two intelligent people listening to you, and an intelligent opponent, and then you're trying to persuade the two people to your point of view, as opposed to the other person. So it's I thought that was like a very interesting setting, and it kind of was very stimulating also. So I mean, I was definitely attracted to it. But after I finished my third year, and I joined another renowned lawyer in the Supreme Court, and when I went to the court for the first day, at the end of that day, I knew that this is what I want to do. It was actually the first day of joining the profession. At the end of it, when I was absolutely clear that yes, this is what I want to do. Now, I have a little theory on this actually, and I see a lot of children or kids these days, preponing this decision as if it's very important to figure out, what I want to do in life. It's like, sort of, it's important to take that decision very early. My thought always is take it easy. Life has a way of finding itself, and ultimately, just do your best, and life will find you. Whatever is best suited to you will come to you. I mean, if I were to be doing anything else, I'd be deeply unhappy, is the way I feel it. Like, after 29 years, I mean, there's not a single day that when I look back and I feel that I regret joining this profession or I don't enjoy it. And by the way, it wasn't my choice, it came to me. So, maybe I'm lucky, or maybe it's just that, life finds you if you give it enough time. So, I mean, that's the way I feel about it. Yeah.
Right, sir. That is very much interesting to know. And after that, sir, do you have any such person in your life who actually had influence on you to pursue law?
Uh, so two people actually, two people. I mean, obviously, the support of your family and all is given. That part, without my parents and my wife, it wouldn't have been possible. But two people other than that who actually very profoundly affected me is, one was the former Chief Justice of India, Justice B.N. Kirpal. When we were in college, I had the fortune of visiting him and was in terms like a family friend, so I had the benefit of his wisdom. And he was always very positive and encouraging, and it was very. I was kind of taken in by that. The second person undoubtedly is my first senior, which was Mr. Harish Salve. So when I was with him, that had a profound effect on me. Yes, because just following up with Bossy and being with him and seeing him in action, how it goes in court, that was very very kind of like revealing and interesting, exciting. So that I would definitely say the two people who did. Yeah.
Right, sir. And sir, after that, please tell us how was your first day in your college, and do you had moot court competition in your college, and uh, any extracurricular activities that you involved yourself in the college?
So, son, you have to realize this that I joined law in 1988. Okay, at that time, law was like sort of what should I say? It was the favorite haunt of people who wanted to give the civil services because it was a 3-year course and it allowed access in the Delhi University to 3 years of hostel. So law wasn't really, the kind of profession it is today, where you have these 5-year courses, you have specialized institutes, and touchwood, the course curriculum is very, very rigorous now. At that point of time, it wasn't that way. That time it was, you did law, but what you learned outside the classroom was more important than what you learned inside the classroom. So if you look at the history of the law faculty in Delhi University, you will find that most of the political leaders who came out were from law faculty, because law at that time was all about public speaking, interacting with the student body, and taking a leadership position. So you have people like Arun Jaitley and all the others who followed after him, who were presidents of DUSU, and obviously who had a profound impact on the Delhi law faculty also. So at that point of time, it was more about what you did outside than inside the class, which was important. Obviously, the rigor of the education system is a lot more these days, and therefore, I guess you people spend a lot more time inside the class, while we spent a lot of time outside the class. Not always up to good things, but yeah, I mean, still.
Indeed, sir. And sir, can you name some of the most prominent professors of Delhi University when you studied in that particular university?
So when we were in college at that time, undoubtedly Dr. Upendra Bakshi used to be like the most eminent, I guess. I don't know, possibly in India at that time. But I must confess that when Professor Bakshi took a class, most of us were lost because he was so far ahead in his thought process compared to, we were like maybe what, 21-year olds after 3 years of college. You were like 21, 2, and you're kind of just trying to figure out what are the boundaries of what is being taught, constitutional law, and what is the development of law, what is the spirit ethos of the constitution, how the nation is structured around it. वो सब तो बहुत लंबी बात हो जाती थी. But Professor Bakshi was like so far ahead in his thought, and many times it was like possibly with the rigor you have today in the academics of law, it may be possible to bridge that gap. But at that point of time, obviously there were some students who were very deeply interested and who were kind of like pursuing it with a great deal of passion, who could keep up with that. But most of the others were just kind of developing, let's say, personalities, and not really chasing law as it is today. So yeah, Professor Bakshi would be the most eminent, but the bridge between him and the student community was also quite large. Yes, very very large. Yes.
Indeed, sir, he is a legendary figure, and we also read his articles, his books, and we definitely take inspiration from his writings. And sir, after that, tell us something about your initial days at the bar. When did you join the law?
So 1991, I passed out in 1991, and immediately after that, you had your provisional result, and the practice at that time was that you took your provisional mark sheet, went to the bar council, they would register you as a lawyer, and you were on your way. And wherever you joined your senior, whether in the Supreme Court, High Court, or the district courts, and you basically sort of tailed your senior to find out what the, let's say, contours of the practice are. And I guess I was lucky, not by design or by sort of very great profound thought, just lucky that I landed up at the Supreme Court. And so suddenly I had the fortune of hearing people like Fali Nariman. I even saw Nani Palkiwala argue, and so I mean that was like a very different era. And some of the Mr. Venu Gopal at that time was like one of the most prominent lawyers. Mr. Soli Sorabji, Mr. Salve, Mr. Rohinton Nariman. They were all kind of they hadn't been designated as seniors, but they were practicing as counsels, and they were just on the verge of being designated. So it was sort of a very, very gratifying experience being there, listening to them, and especially in regular matters where you actually saw them build an argument, and how to persuade a judge, and not over a couple of hours, many times over many couple of days or 5 days or something like that. So it was extremely gratifying, and it gave you a clear vision of exactly what you wanted to do. Yeah. So I mean that was very helpful in structuring your own thought of what is the kind of practice you would like to pursue. Yeah.
Indeed, sir. Now, sir, tell us about your senior. Whose chamber did you join for the first time when you joined law, the legal profession? Tell us something about your seniors or senior.
So I mean, as I said, I had joined Mr. Harish Salve, and I spent 2 years with him, in my initial years, and again, not by profound thought or by design, but I think I just got lucky landing up in his chamber. And I was extremely lucky to have him as my boss for two reasons. One, you know, while he was always there, and if you went to him with a question, you always got a sort of a engaging discussion, a rounded view of what to do, not to do, what to think, not to think, or what will be the right way of thinking, how the law will develop. The greatest part about him was that like he was a little bit of a free spirit, and he allowed that freedom in office also. So you didn't have, he wasn't kind of killing you with that this is what is expected of you and therefore you must complete this. It was more about that this is your life, you have to own it, and you have to be responsible for whatever you're doing. So if you work hard, you're doing it for yourself, and I'm there to help you, guide you, build you up as a lawyer personality. But the initial initiative and the initial effort has to come from you. It's not that bossy would whip you and tell you कि ये करो. ऐसा नहीं था हमारे chamber में. It was more like that he saw that you were interested in putting in the hard work, or that you were interested in kind of like sort of doing what you were supposed to do. He was very encouraging. But really, he won't chase you. That wasn't his job or his responsibility. It was quite clear that's your job, your responsibility, what you want to do with your life. That was actually super helpful to me later in life also, because it just built in and my family background, my from my home also, my father also had the same attitude that you have ownership of your decisions, and by the way, you are also responsible for the consequences which will flow out of your decision. So you knew that if you wanted to do something, it's up to you. There'd be encouragement all around, but really nobody is going to kind of hold his finger and kind of walk you across the path. नहीं, वैसे नहीं. So that I thought was extremely, as a personality development thing, I think it was extremely useful, where you had to kind of think about it yourselves, do it yourselves. There was guidance undoubtedly, and solid guidance, but it was, it was up to you what you wanted to do. So that was superb. And even today, if you were to look at it in my chamber, when I follow that practice, it's absolutely the same. So if anybody comes and joins, it's like, it's up to them. If they want to work, there's a lot of work to be done. Why, if somebody doesn't want to work, there's no work to be done. I mean, enjoy yourselves, but you are kind of like responsible for that decision, and also the consequences in time when they flow. Yeah.
Absolutely, sir. And sir, after that, we also know that different senior advocates have different ways of working. So you told about Mr. Harish Salve. Could you please tell us about his ways of working or ways of preparing for a case?
So, preparing a case at that time, and which I guess, got inculcated in us also, was quite clear. You always had to be on top of your facts. So, you couldn't kind of mess around with that. So, I mean, I mean, it was our job, and he himself was kind of quite clear about that the facts had to be, sort of very, very. You had to kind of imbibe them in you. And after that, and it was quite clear that, law applies to facts. So you get the facts clear, and the law will apply. And then was the articulation. So the facts, the law, the research, everything done. And in articulation, I guess, we've all had our kind of, we've had benefit of seeing him in action in some way, form, or manner. And he was just brilliant. And just kind of, I remember one thing which happened when during one of the conferences, when I was there, and he just said that, the only purpose why you are here, and the maximum that you can gather from me, is if you are able to follow my thought, if you're able to kind of like, figure out how my mind floats and how my mind reaches the objective, you would have done well. And that was my way of dealing with, the next generation also, that if you could kind of like, sort of gather. So it wasn't as if you had to follow his thought. It was that if you gathered his thought, then you could, on your own, independently analyze it, evaluate it with respect to settled law, and the facts of the case. You could have a debate with him. You could kind of have a discussion with him. All that was there, but the initial thought about how if you're starting from a point and you have to reach a second point, how do you cover that distance in an efficient manner, where you are able to, without confusion, able to convey your point in a persuasive manner. So that was very, very helpful. Yeah. So I mean, and the manner of preparing a case was always about, like, that you do the right thing, but the idea is that you present it in a manner where, you are able to, if it's a plausible view, both sides, you need to make your view a little more plausible, so that, the judges are inclined to accept your point of view. So that was very, very, yeah, interesting.
Great, sir. And sir, what are the most important qualities that you adore about Mr. Salve?
See, I mean, the fact that he's brilliant, everybody knows. Uh, but what many people don't know is the sheer hard work behind where he is. So it was like, an unrelenting, untiring 14 hours a day routine for him and everybody around, including us. And to sustain that routine over that period of time, and to maintain that quality of delivery, I thought it was just stunningly, sort of unique for him. Yeah. I'm sure if you were to interview him, he'll tell you even today that he does his regular 14 hours of work. And while 14 hours itself doesn't sound much, but when you look at it on a daily basis, every day, day on day, week on week, month on month, it's a, I can't even begin to describe that effort. It's sort of very, very, yeah, solid effort. Yeah,
Indeed, sir. It takes a lot of discipline and hard work to maintain
absolutely.
that kind of routine. Indeed, sir. Sir, could you
To
share
get up
some
in the
other?
morning,
Yes, sir.
to get up in the morning and do what you did yesterday, and be prepared in your mind to do it again tomorrow. That discipline is, sort of, which is, I think any lawyer who can get that discipline in their mind, frankly, there's no chance that you're going to fail as a lawyer. I'm not saying that everybody is going to be Harish Salve, because the brilliance or the intelligence or the articulation, everybody is different. Your ability is God given, and that will be different. But how you, with what responsibility you hone that ability, is really the distance you'll travel in success. So if you're putting in that kind of perseverance and hard work day after day, there's no chance that you're going to fail. Not at least in this profession. You will make your mark, you will make your place, and you will find your space. There's no doubt in my mind about that.
Indubitably, sir. And sir, could you share some anecdotes about Mr. Salve or some interesting conversation between you and him?
We leave that aside. We leave that. Yeah.
Okay, sir. Sir, do you remember the first case in which you appeared as a counsel independently? And what was your feeling? Did you feel a bit nervous while appearing before the Honorable Court or something of that sort?
That's so forget the first case. Even when I appear today, you are nervous, and I think it's a great thing to be a little nervous. It keeps you on your toes, and it keeps you kind of clear in your mind that you have to, whenever you go to court, you have to be prepared. You just can't sleepwalk into court thinking that ki kuch bhi jaake bol denge. It doesn't work like that. Okay, when the court does choose to grant you audience, it's the time is very precious, and you have to deal with it responsibly. It's not possible to just walk into court. I still feel nervous even today, and I think it helps me prepare better, and sort of forces me to think about, like, how to approach a case, which is extremely useful. Yeah, yeah. As far as the first case is concerned, well, it's so long back. I don't know. Let's say I appeared in 1994, I think. So 27 years. I don't know, maybe it was the MRTP at that time, yeah, the Monopolistic and Restricted Trade Commission, MRTP. We had appeared at, yeah, yeah, maybe I am too long back. Don't remember the first case. Yeah.
No, it's just that. That's all right. And sir, you told us about Mr. Harish Salve, Mr. Fali Nariman, Mr. Suliswaraj and Nani Palkhiwala. All these men are legends, and we greatly revere them, we greatly respect them. So, who all others member of the bar who influenced you or had an imprint on your character and personality?
So Jyoti, you have to be clear about this, that when you join the profession and you're in court, everybody kind of, like, sort of influences you in a manner, whether it is by design, by kind of, like, because you want that influence, or it's a subconscious thing. But that entire environment plays or molds you in a manner. So how you address the court, respectfully or disrespectfully, or sort of in a defiant manner. Basically, you are a creature of whatever you've learned and however that has influenced you. So there are people who are very, very, sort of conscious when they are in court of their responsibility, and very, very, sort of responsible in the manner in which they address court, their point of view, and they are also able to distinguish between, the point that is being argued versus the people who are arguing it, and, the judges who are hearing it. So as long as you're able to figure that out, that it's not a personal thing, it's just a point being argued. So that also is something which is very, very useful. So yeah, I mean, in the sense, I don't think it will be possible for me, besides my own senior and, as I said, Justice Kirpal, who would say have influenced me, but other than that, it's all sort of everybody molds you just by being there. It's just a very subconscious, sort of sculpting which happens all the time when you're in court and you're learning. Yeah. No one person, I
Right,
would say.
sir.
It's just the entire environment.
Very right, sir. And sir, apart from that, could you please name some of the legendary figures of the bar who are the greatest of your time?
No, I mean, in the sense, what do you mean when you say greatest of your time? I mean, I'm not that old, man. I
No,
guess well,
like
I'm
when you
still,
started
I'm still today. When I started, okay, when I
in
started,
this,
yeah. So
when you
at that
started,
time,
sir.
yeah. So at that time, I had the one of my strongest memories is seeing Mr. Nani Palkiwala arguing the Mandal Commission matter. Even though he addressed the court only on one day for maybe 2 hours or maybe 3 hours, but I had kept myself completely free because I wanted to see those 2 3 hours, and that was stunning. So Nani Palkiwala for sure. Ram Jethmalani was opposing him in that because he was for the Mandal Commission. So that and how Mr. Jethmalani went about the entire thing was also very stunning. Mr. Ashok Sen, G. Ramaswamy. I mean, he still is. Mr. Nariman was, sort of much younger and much more kind of like, sort of engaged in court. Uh, Possibly a little very choosy these days, but at that time, so he was very, very kind of like, yeah. So it was like, some of the Mr. Parasaran. How could I forget Mr. Parasaran? He was kind of complete legend in himself. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, if you wanted a role model, you had plenty to choose from, and one better than the other. So it was like sort of I guess much like you guys have today, some of the legendary figures to follow and make your role model. So at that time we had to, but only that they were characters of a different time. Yeah.
Right, sir. Unfortunately, still we have several legends on the bench and also in the bar that we revere and we respect and take inspiration from. And sir, with that, I end my phase of interview questions. I now request Devasis, with your due permission, sir, I request Devasis to take over the session and to conduct the second phase of this interview. Devasis, please.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jyoti Prakash, for calling me in and asking very much relevant questions to our honorable guest of today's evening. So, with that, I would like to continue this interview session and the second part of our talk show, sir.
Thank you.
All right. All right, sir. So, as you and Jyoti Prakash have extensively discussed about the doyens of the bar, including Harish Salve, sir, Nani Palkiwala, Falias Nariman, and you were talking about Parasaran also. So, after that, we would like to know that who are the judges in the Supreme Court or any other high courts in which you have practiced, towards whom you have highest regard. Like we can say that all any of the Supreme Court judges are bad or something like that, but then who are the most uh, who are the most of intelligent, or who are most of the witty persons between those judges whom you would like to tell, so that we would be quite familiar with them in particular?
So undoubtedly, I started, as I said, in 91, and anybody who started in that time will tell you that for our age group, the most favorite and absolutely, the greatest at that time would be Justice M.N. Venkatachalaya, who went on to be the Chief Justice of India also. But the greatest quality about Justice Venkatachalaya was that he was a complete reservoir of patience. I mean, I have never ever seen a judge more patient than him. Means he could and he took pains. And by patience, I just don't mean that that you come up with a fool's argument and he is patient with you. No, that's not what I mean. What I mean is that if a youngster was arguing before him, and it's visible when you're like 25 and you're arguing in the Supreme Court with three of two or three judges sitting there, and these are people with immense knowledge of the law. At that time, how he could actually just pick up a junior sort of a lawyer, and just kind of so carefully encourage, nurture somebody, give him the confidence that it's fine to even if you're not able to articulate your best, but you must try, and to encourage that effort. I mean, by far, I don't think I've seen anybody like Justice M.N. Venkatachalaya. The other is Justice B.N. Kidwal. He was razor sharp, and while he was not really prone to suffering fools, or like any silly arguments. But if he picked up, like he would pick up your point in a second, and if you were on speed with him, and if you could kind of manage his speed of thought, then he was just kind of a pleasure to be with. I mean, it was absolutely stunning. Okay. Justice R.C. Lahoti, who again went on to be a Chief Justice of India. And him again, I've seen him, not just listen, but actually help you. If he felt that, your point, that what you're trying to say has an added dimension to it, he would very kindly suggest that, maybe this is also what you want to say. Which was stunning, actually. So instead of being instead of judging as possibly a judge could easily do, these were people who were actually concerned, who would actually take that extra effort, or make that extra effort, take that extra time to build you up. And as a youngster, it was phenomenal. Justice D.K. Jain, again, phenomenal. I mean, as a youngster, I remember appearing before him, and whether he agreed with you or he didn't agree with you, the most important thing was that he heard you completely respectfully and engaged with you, tried to figure out what you were saying. If he saw merit, he agreed with you. That was his prerogative. That there can be no doubt about. But that you had your day in court and you had it respectfully. It was so. I mean, yeah, some of the people who actually have inspired you as then these are the people you would definitely want to appear before. Yeah.
Indeed, sir. And the names that you have said are inspiration for us even, and we read about them. We have heard their interviews, few of their interviews on YouTube also. So thank you so much, sir, for that. And after that, I would like to know that as you have spent almost 3 decades in this profession, are there any courtroom interaction or sort of conversation between you and any justices, or you and opposite party, which are either witty or remarkable, and you would like to point it out here, or maybe humorous? Like, we see a lot of humorous conversations coming out from courtroom interactions. So if you remember anything and would like to share that.
So, there's one thing. I mean, these things obviously happen, Devashish. I mean, in court, there's always, humor. and it sort of levitates the atmosphere, and sort of dispenses the stress in a manner, so to say. And personally, I think that humor is a great, I mean, in a lawyer's armory, I think humor is right up there as one of the top things that he could use to, persuade his or persuade the court to his point of view. And usually the best points are made with the smallest or number of words, and tinged with a little bit of humor. Those are the points which you're able to make the sharpest. Okay, so yeah, I mean, there have been number of instances when this has happened, but I don't think it'll be fair for me to relate them here, because I mean, this is possibly because that'll be my side of the vision, or my side of viewing the humor. Somebody else may not really think it to be very humorous, but or at least the opposite side lawyer at that time obviously wouldn't have thought it to be very humorous. Yeah, but I mean, the value of humor in court as a lawyer's, in his armory, and the ability to kind of like put across your point in a nice, light but solid manner, without sort of killing the court with stress. I think that is very, very important in a lawyer's thing. So yes, humor would be amongst one of the most important things. Yes. Yeah.
Absolutely, sir. And after that, as Jyoti Prakash introduced you while speaking about you, that you have established or co-founded ZEUS Law Associates. So we would like to know that how you came up with the idea of establishing a law firm which deals with litigation and arbitration and all sorts of other sectors. And what was your idea behind that?
So that was quite simple actually. I'm a first generation lawyer. Nobody in my family remotely, from my father's side, my mother's side, nobody was in the profession of law. So as a first generation lawyer, when you start building your career and you start thinking, so you're thinking in terms of like how do I build a practice. Now you could do it individually, and obviously chase your dream individually. But again, I would say that remember that the times today after 1991, when I joined, is also the year when liberalization happened, when the Indian economy actually opened up. So till that time, law was a area of practice, and it was fairly dominated by generational practices. So you had everybody who was sort of, most of the people were either second, third generation lawyers. Very few first generation. I'm not saying there were no first generation. There were first generation lawyers, but the struggle was that much more at that time. So you always were thinking in terms of how to build your practice. And in building your practice, it was so when I co-founded ZEUS Law, it was with a college friend of mine. And while I'm no longer a part of ZEUS, I obviously wish them well. And when we set that up, is that was basically structured around organizing a practice and broad basing it, because we thought that and which is why you don't find our name as like sort of Kohli Panda or something, and because we thought that like this intergenerational thing strikes at meritocracy, and anybody who's meritorious enough should be allowed a partnership seat, or should be allowed movement in the hierarchy, and should be upwardly mobile to the best of his capability. So we did not want to keep the firm's name also neutral. We wanted to keep it neutral. We didn't want to keep it on any family name, and the entire idea was to build depth in practice, so that it could be for other people who followed us also. Hopefully we are following that, and yeah, I mean, in the sense, I'm sure that like and now if you see, there are a lot of firms which follow this practice. So you will not find family names, but you will find some fancy name, which is like ZEUS or and There are many other names which kind of go now, and which is basically, because these are all entrepreneurial first generation people who are trying to build a practice. Okay, maybe first generation with the second, third generation, but again neutral name, and you're trying to take it forward. So I think it's the great democratization of legal practice, and it's great that the institutes that you guys come from are helping in that too. While the legal sort of practice, the business around legal law is also obviously from 91 after liberalization has increased tremendously. But I think from where we were in 91 and where we are, the best thing is that the institutes have been able to sort of make sure that the manpower is never uh, short, or not of a quality where it will be sort of hamstrung on hiring, or finding out the right people. So that kind of a thing is I think that's one of the great things that has happened. The institutes have kept up, and the workforce also has made sure that there's enough trained manpower which is there. So that's wonderful. Yeah.
That absolutely a brilliant idea behind your GEOS Law Associate that you have co-founded then. So, and even the idea that you said is quite great and will surely boost or push first generation lawyers to take part or join such law firms, apart from other than those law firms who are continuing since generations. So that's a great idea, and I really appreciate that. Being a first generation law student, I
Yeah.
would say. So after that, sir, as we know that you are currently Advocate General of Sikkim High for the state of Sikkim in the Sikkim High Court. We would like to know that how your practice career has changed after being appointed to this post, and what are the peculiarities in becoming an Advocate General for a state. So, if you could like to tell us something on that.
So this is actually on three dimensions. The answer to this is on three dimensions. The first would be that, effectively, how did you become the Advocate General, and why did you take up the position? Okay. So how did I become is essentially because a very very important part in, I think, a lawyer's life is also about the pro bono work that they do. It's extremely important, and how the cycle of life works, and how some work which you've done pro bono. Trust me, in life, Debashish, there is nothing pro bono. What you think you're doing as pro bono is adding up to your good deeds or good karma somewhere, and you'll get compensated for it. I mean, I'm not saying that you should desire the compensation, but I have this firm belief that, somebody is overseeing some your guardian angel is overseeing the entire thing, and you will always sort of, you'll never be shortchanged for a good deed. You'll always, and which is exactly what happened here. Some interaction somewhere at some point of time resulted in this offer coming up again, totally out of the blue. Now, why did I take it up is because when these positions come to you, it's not for you to say no. You always give it your best. If you work it out for 2, 3, 4 years, and you feel ki nahi, it's like too much of a conflict, or it's tying me down, then you have a choice to make. But without trying, making a choice, I think is a poor choice. At least for me, it makes a poor choice. So I always, whenever something comes up, I always like to give it a shot. If it doesn't work out, you can always say no. You don't need to say it on day zero. You can say it on day 10 that nahi chal raha abhi mere se nahi hota, or I'm too much stress or too much whatever. That's why I took it up. Uh, One of the great things that this assignment did for me is that being part of a firm, and sort of straddling between litigation practice and corporate practice on the other side is always a very confusing thing and very strenuous. Your legs in two different boats, is trust me, it's not just a proverb that when you're in two boats you are basically asking for trouble. It's not a proverb, it's true. You are asking for trouble. And this is exactly what my situation was before this I took up this assignment. So one of the great things that this assignment did for me is that it just helped me resolve that question in my head, which had always been there, that do I want to become a senior advocate or do I want to continue running the firm. And when I took up this assignment, that issue got resolved on its own, like in a minute, that I am going to be a senior advocate and I'm going to take that path. And therefore, sort of I took up the assignment, gave up the firm partnership, and became a senior advocate. And now I'm totally into counsel practice. Yeah. So if you look at it now, thanks to, I don't know whether that will be the correct way of putting it, but thanks to COVID, because of this virtual hearing thing, now I used to travel to Sikkim almost 1 week every month. I used to be there and do all my work and cases there, but now I'm able to do it virtually. So it's like a lot easier, better, and yeah, I mean in the same, it is some extra effort, but quite worth it. The experience as an advocate general, it allows you visibility of why the government does what it does. So when you've been on this side for 25-30 years and you spend your life questioning what the government does, and you always feel ki does nobody apply their mind, does nobody think about ye kya kiya, uh, trust me, they do apply their mind. I can guarantee you that they apply their mind. They've gone through it. There's always a good, solid reason. Unless I mean, everybody is human. Unless there's a mistake which has been made, and which is fine. I mean, everybody's allowed to do that. Unless a mistake has been made, government action is usually quite well thought through. It is what I've realized now. And when opinions come to me about should we do this or can we do this or can we do that, and I see the amount of thought, effort, not just from one person, but like 360 view on how it can be done. It's quite amazing actually, and I personally think that that the depth or quantum of that thought is underappreciated and undervalued, not just on the judicial side, but also amongst the citizenry. As citizens of this country, we are not able to actually many times gather the full, sort of weight of what the thought that has gone through in making a policy. It's quite sort of detailed. Yeah.
That was a fascinating answer, sir. That was a fascinating answer, and I would uh, surely know that this will bend the viewers' view towards the Advocate General or the state's part of formulating laws and how they deal with it. And as you said, they apply their mind. So the thinking will surely change from this answer of our viewers. So, sir, after that, we would like to know the important cases that you have dealt till date. Like may not be important as per reporting conditions, but important to towards your heart. It is closer to your heart, and it satisfied you in dealing that particular case in some way or other. So, if you would like to mention two, three
So,
cases.
one which comes to my mind straight away is that, again, I don't know how history is being taught these days in school, but, Sikkim actually merged with the Union of India in 75-6, right? And while, I finished school only in 85, and while there was always that chapter that, like, Sikkim is the 22nd at that point of time state of the Union of India, and sort of but really, when as the Advocate General, I had the opportunity to actually deal with how the citizens of Sikkim prior to the merger became citizens of India. Okay, now The easy bit was that all the citizens who were registered as the citizens of Sikkim became the citizens of India. That was easy peasy. There was no doubt. But obviously, as in every country, there were some people who were in remote villages, or like, let's say, or who were farmers in the hinterlands and who didn't have any paperwork about, like, them being citizens of Sikkim itself. Now, can you believe it that they still, after 76, it's now almost 24 plus 7, 41 years, they still struggle to get their citizenship. They are still, sort of petitions made about why and how those folks must be made. So it's actually, stunning when you do something which is, sort of rooted in history, and you realize that, in a transitional history, some of the problems which folks like you and me are completely unaware of, and folks like you and me are unaffected by. But the profound effect it has on some people's life, and how their entire life is just, sort of revolving around that one issue. So we did that case in Sikkim. I lost, by the way. The judgment came against the state government, but I still think it was possibly a correct judgment. And sort of maybe I shouldn't say more because we are in appeal against it, but that was something which was very gratifying. Yes, that was very, very gratifying. Yeah.
All right, sir. After that, sir, we would like to know that what are the main challenges that the people of Sikkim face for prosecuting a case, or for dealing with numerous matters that comes to the court. So I am sure that there must be some set of challenges that the people are facing per se. So being the highest law officer of the state, would you like to mention anything on this line?
So, the challenges, I think, in Sikkim are more infrastructural. Okay. By infrastructural, two parts to that answer. The first is awareness. People must be aware of their rights. Only then can they prosecute them. So as far as the awareness is concerned, Sikkim is, while it's a hill state, it's fairly, sort of well structured around the primary, secondary education. People are kind of like, quite aware of what their rights are. And the institutions are very, very conscious of their responsibility towards the citizens. And no less the judiciary too. They are also extremely conscious about, like, the fact that it's a hill state, the fact that possibly it's the youngest state in terms of, merger with India. So while there have been, bifurcations after that, or trifurcations after that, but Sikkim remains the youngest in terms of a merger. So, from an outside into the inside, the development of the constitutional machinery or constitutional institutions in Sikkim, that's one part, and which has, sort of kept pace. And I think it's quite, sort of, the judges are absolutely top quality. Their ability to figure out the problems that the locals have, or the local population has, and their deep-seated, sort of passion to make sure that justice is not just seen to be done, but actually done. So, going that extra mile to make sure that the citizen is protected. Many times we are at the receiving end of it from the, from the state perspective, but it doesn't take away anything from the institutional perspective of, the endeavor of the court to make sure that everything is done properly, which is quite fantastic. The second part is the physical infrastructure, because it's a hilly state, and the transportation, the commute, and everything around that is changing. And in the last few years, it has changed more rapidly. and I'm sure in the coming years it will continue changing at that pace, where Sikkim, I'm sure, is going to be a very, very integrated part of the country. So yeah, I think we are on the right path, and very, very clearly solid path. Yeah.
Undoubtedly, sir. Sikkim is developing, and it will obviously touch the heights and the aspirations and the things, and will overcome the challenges and the hurdles that you have said now.
Absolutely.
So, yes, sir. So after that, sir, as we know that you have drafted the first ever distribution license issued by Delhi Electricity Regulatory Commission, and must have drafted numerous petitions and appeals and a number of other things throughout these decades. So we would like to know what are the intricacies or basic pointers of drafting that we as young law students and young legal professionals should remember always.
So I have a simple, sort of mantra for that. When you're building up a case, Devashish, effectively you're telling a story. It's a very important story. Only thing is that the story is born out of true events. It actually affects somebody's life, and will obviously affect their rights. So it's extremely important, but you still can't lose sight of the fact that it's a story. Now, you must be clear when you're drafting a petition that the story comes out the best it can, which means that there is a certain flow to it. You must be able to, sort of capture the facts in a interesting and linear manner about how what led to what, and then you state your law point that this is how you got impinged or whatever. What I've never been able to figure out is, when a petition is drafted where one fact is stated here, one fact is stated there. While there is obviously a link or conjunction between the two, but in the petition they appear completely disjointed or disparate. That really doesn't help. So imagine this, that if just be clear in your mind, you're relating the story of Sholay, and it has to come through as smoothly as that. And it should be kind of like when a judge or when a judge reads it, he must be able to clearly figure out ki this is the point that you're trying to drive at. So your drafting has to be absolutely clear in that. To that end, I also always say that even before you start drafting a petition, sit down with a piece of paper, pencil, and just 1 2 3 4 to 10 in bullet points write down that this is the narration I'm going to follow, and that one line can develop into a paragraph or into 3 paragraphs, but just have your narration right up front on how you want to do it. It always helps you capture the story correctly and nicely. Yeah.
That's an enlightening answer, sir, and I am sure that this pointer or the advice given by you will help a number of law students who will view this in future and who are viewing this now. Apart from drafting, sir, there is another part which is important for lawyers and law students. That is judgment reading. So, if you can tell us how to read a judgment effectively. And nowadays, there is a trend that almost 500, 600 pages judgments are coming up by the Supreme Court at least. So, how we should tackle that being law students?
Again, the same thing, be clear. If you see, and now there are also judgments of the Supreme Court where the honorable judges have said that repeating the law, which is sort of, let's say, uh, quantified, cast in stone, and which is settled absolutely. So, repeating the law and quoting all the judgments right from 1950 onwards, many judgments, many judges now say it doesn't make sense. So, you take the mother judgment and you say that this is a settled position of law and which has been followed all through, and that's enough. You can go ahead. Now, so when you're reading a judgment, the judgment is usually in 3 parts, if you'll notice. The first part is the facts. where the facts are laid out. The second part is the discussion, and the third part is the conclusion. Okay. My suggestion always is that focus on the first and the third part. The facts you must know, because any judgment will apply to your case provided the facts tally. Okay, so whether it is distinguishable or not distinguishable will not be in the second portion where the discussion, or let's say the position of law, is being stated. It will be either in the facts or in the conclusion where it is there. Most likely in the facts. Pay attention to the facts. The discussion part is your knowledge base. When you read that, it's sort of, it adds to you, because there are 10 different aspects which are discussed. So that's increasing your knowledge base. And then the conclusion of how the court tends to derive its judgment based on facts, and so it gives you an insight, Debashish, into the thinking of the court, or how the court's mind works. And then it allows you to sort of prepare your arguments also accordingly. You know exactly what the court is looking for to arrive at a particular decision. So that part is extremely helpful. So always look at the three parts, and then figure out where you fit in. Yeah.
Absolutely, sir. You have said light on this judgment reading aspect in a very well manner, and this will also help law students, including me and Jyoti Prakash Datta and others who are giving. So now, sir, I have three more questions, and then we will end our session and this talk. So this question is something related on morals. So what would you do if you were assigned a case which you are morally opposed to? Like, will you take this case, or uh, will you recuse from taking it? And what is your view on this part? Because there are number of views on this particular aspect of morality of taking cases.
So as a lawyer, you're dealing with two separate sets of morality. The first is as a personal morality. So sort of many people will say that there's, let's say, illustratively, that I will not appear for the alcohol or tobacco or any of these sinful goods. I will not appear in these matters, because I'm at a personal level, I am opposed to them. Okay. Many people will tell you that I will not appear for a rape accused, or like somebody who's in domestic violence cases. I will not appear for them because I'm personally opposed to them. But over here there's a little bit of a conflict between the personal and then the professional morality. Professional morality is that you are, as a lawyer, obligated to sort of discharge your duty to your client and defend him to the best. Okay. Over here, I'll relate an anecdote to you. So I don't know whether this happened or not, but when I joined the Supreme Court, I was also related this anecdote that this is how it happened. So in the 1950s, when Gujarat for the first time came out with that prohibition law, where they said that alcohol will not be allowed to be sold in the state, it obviously got challenged. The matter came up before the Supreme Court. And I'm told that, I was related that the legendary C.K. Daftari, at that time the Attorney General of India, he appeared. And but he wasn't appearing for the state at that time. He appeared for the parties objecting to the bill. And sort of the judges were also very surprised. They said that, Mr. Daftari, this is a moral issue. How can you appear? This is all related. So it's like, third party. And I'm told that Mr. Daftari answered that by saying, sir, I have no objection to not having my 2 drinks in the evening. I don't have a problem with that. I have a problem with not being able to choose whether I have those drinks or not. Nobody else will make that choice for me. I will make that choice. That's, that choice is intrinsic to me, and I will choose. The state will not choose for me what I should have or not have. Now, for me, it was always a very interesting way of looking at it, that, I can do without the drinks. But, I will not partake my right to choose whether I have those drinks to anybody else. That's really, the more now. Therefore, while at a personal level, I may be opposed to drinks or alcohol for a moment, but at a professional level, am I willing to stand up and fight for that right to choose or not? So, what would you choose? Let me ask you that, would you choose the professional moral over the personal moral?
Indeed not, sir. We
It's not an easy choice, and sort of, I've had to make it twice in my career, and both the times I chose the professional moral, because I thought that, like, my own personal morality cannot be imposed on others. It's sort of unfair, because I can impose it on myself, set myself up, adhere to those standards, conduct myself in that manner. But for me to say that everybody else should conduct themselves to my level of morals, I think it's a little arrogant. And I also think it's, sort of unfair in a manner. Yeah, yeah. So both the times to answer your question bluntly, both the times I chose the professional model.
Indeed, sir. Even many great lawyers, as you said, say that we have to choose professional morality over our personal belief and personal choices towards a particular case or personal view. And we shouldn't impose that, because our first duty and first morality is to deal with a case, being an advocate, and not to discard it on the basis of our personal views. So well, that's a great answer towards this question, sir. Now, sir, the next question that I have is that we would like to know about your other special interests, like apart from reading law books or apart from involved in legal profession, what else you do?
Well, two things. Travel. I sort of, I would love to travel a lot more than I travel right now. But I think, sort of, practice law, and everybody is constructed differently, sort of. So for me, it's a very important part of my life, work. It has been the predominant part of my life, but I would like to change that. And I would much rather, sort of, I would much like to travel and, sort of, generally experience life in sort of, its various colors and facets. I think that's something which I've missed out on a little, but I would love to do that a lot. Yeah, yeah. And then,
Uh,
sort of, the other thing would be, sort of, maybe I would like to do a little more sports. Obviously not football at this age, but maybe some more golf or some more, sort of, maybe adventure sports a little more. Yeah, that I'd like to do. Yeah.
that's quite great to know, sir,
Yeah.
about your interest in both these areas. Now, sir, coming to the last question of today's talk show, I would like to uh, ask you something related to advices for younger generation. And given the COVID situation, physical courts are almost shut. And what would be your advice to the young freshers who have joined the profession in these COVID times? In specific and in general, the advice that you would like to give young law professionals and young law students to adhere to.
Simple. One advice: get up in the morning and do what you're supposed to do today. Don't let, what happened yesterday, or what I should be doing tomorrow, or what should be happening tomorrow. Don't let that confuse or burden you in what you need to do today. Do what you need to do today. Everything else, and mind you, when you get up tomorrow you do what you're supposed to do tomorrow. But do what you're supposed to do, and everything else will fall in place. Everything else will fall in place. It's simple advice. No kind of, like, lamba lecture on this, but just very simply, do what you're supposed to do today. Yeah.
Indeed, sir. You have given a great piece of advice in much brief manner, and I am sure this will be adhered by our viewers. So, with that, sir, we come to the end of today's talk show, and we are really grateful hosting you this afternoon. And you have talked about your childhood. You have given pointers on judgment reading and then drafting. You have shared a number of anecdotes pertaining to Harish Salve sir and other senior advocates from the Supreme Court. And you have also told various facets of your life and your interests and a number of advices. So for that, sir, I, Devashish Kumar Panda, co-founder of Team Lex Cognoscenti, would like to extend our profound thanks to you for giving and sparing almost more than 1 hour from your busy schedule and talking with us, interacting with us. So it was a great session, sir. We are really, really privileged and obliged and humbled to host you. So thank you. Thank you so much, sir, for joining in today.
Thank you for having me over. And as I told Jyoti in the beginning that it should be an interesting afternoon, it was. I enjoyed my conversation with you. Hopefully, some of the stuff that I said would make sense to the younger, lawyers, and it'll be helpful. But it was a very, very enjoyable afternoon for me. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you,
sir.
sir.
Thank
We
you.
wish
Thank
you
you,
perennial
everyone.
health and prosperity, sir.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Stay safe. Stay safe. Thank you.
Same to you, sir.
Thank
Thank you.